This week, Hutchi and I talk about the Caulfield track. Again, there were some lanes that were very significantly advantaged, some disadvantaged. So maybe there's some pot of gold there if you follow some of those horses. Hen House was hard to find a few. Maybe Buckaroo, in terms of the Melbourne Cup, could be the one you could follow. Doghouse, there was plenty in there. I think there's plenty of horses that have gone pretty poorly and some races that I think we can avoid, especially going towards the Derby and the Oaks. Hutchi also identifies just a few horses you want to be with. I go off Broadway as well. Let's open up Pandora's Box. Hello and welcome to Pandora's Box. My name is Julian Valence, joined as always by Racing.com analyst Clint Hutchison. It was a big week on the punt. Everest up in Sydney, Hutchi. Caulfield Cup down in Caulfield. I know you were on the Racing.com broadcast.
Yeah.
You got through it okay?
Not really.
Yeah.
No, it was horrendous. The coverage was all right.
Oh,
without being it, but what I did was pretty poor.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
A lot of seconds. I mean, a couple of them were a bit stiff, but no, it wasn't great and didn't do anything clever. Did nothing clever. So we've got a lot of work to do. We've got to find some winners going
Yeah, we do. We'll start by trying to give you some information about the track intel. All right, so it was the third track analysis here, punters for Caulfield. So it was the third of their days, Hutch. So obviously we were in the true for Caulfield Guineas Day. It played a certain way with the southerly wind. You needed to be sort of in lanes, certain lanes on speed. Then Wednesday I thought it actually played quite fairly, but it was a long way out. It was out 12 metres. Then we went back to out 3 metres on Saturday. And again, the southerly wind was important here because, well, let's start with heavy 8 to begin with. Yeah. Upgraded to a soft 7 after race 2, and then upgraded to a soft 6 after race 8. My numbers and times are suggesting I reckon we're probably starting on a soft 7 to begin with.
Yeah.
And then there's no doubt the track dried out as those conditions improved throughout the day. Had a bit of sun on the track, and obviously the southerly wind sort of picked up to about 40 k's at some stages. So it dried the track out. But there was no doubt, again, there was some advantages with lanes again. I think lanes 3 to 5 were absolutely gold.
In the straight.
Absolutely. Lanes 1 and 2, no doubt, jockeys avoided that early doors, but then as the day went on, the track dried out, they went back to the inside. I don't think there was any issue there. I think the big takeout, which I think we both agree on here, is if you're trying to find some horses that maybe you can be forgiving of, if you were 6+, you were in gonzo land.
Yeah, absolutely. So you couldn't make up too much ground, real on speed, and that ground was sticky. A bit like some of the establishments that you end up in, with a lot of spillage on the ground. Yeah. But no, look, on a serious note, they were finding it hard to make ground. So I think any of those horses, and there were so many of them, I mean, through the meeting, to be honest with you, that were well back in the field and made the grab. There were a couple that ran well.
Yeah, they did.
We'll get to them.
Yeah, we will.
There weren't that many.
No.
And big margins.
Big margins, which you usually only see like on a really heavy 10 sort of situation, but it wasn't. As we said, there's no doubt that times indicate that track did continually dry out, and we were on a soft track throughout the day. That's the track intel. Okay, Hen House here, Hutch. So this is where we want to identify horses or races in particular that we thought went really, really well, and we can probably follow these horses going forward. To be honest, when I sat down and reviewed this, I thought there's a lot more races going in the doghouse, and my own behaviour's going in the doghouse as well. But so it was a bit hard to find some horses or races in particular that go in the Hen House. The one you identified was race 5. The winner was Neance.
Oh, yes.
It's going really good.
Gee, the money just kept coming and coming. We'll talk about that later, but fantastic performance. Smashed the clock. Yep. It was probably this stage of the day you thought, it must be drying out a bit because they ran pretty good time. Yes. But even at that stage, you could see, no, this is a good performance over a shorter distance to put that margin up. Pondalawi was great. Obviously, a race with a bit of interference. I was on Isthmus, wouldn't have won anyway, but got chopped out. We won't delve into that too much. But no, that race, I'm going to trust that. I don't know where they'll go with the winner, but she's smart, and Pondalawi was fantastic.
Yeah, I think they did too. And there was big gaps too. Big gap third, big gap fourth. But winner's first up, so we love that. So there's going to be some races that horse can go to. And Pondalawi came out of a really good rating race the start prior. I just thought it might have found a really hot race on Saturday, which it did, but it ran outstanding.
Yep.
They're the two you can stand, but I think wherever they go, I think we're happy to be
with Pondalawi as well. But I mean, to make up that ground and bridge that gap wasn't easy to do. So there's definitely a good stakes race in that pair.
All right, I'll put this race in the Hen House for no other reason other than it is the Caulfield Cup. And Look, they go 3/4 of a second inside standard time, so that's the positive. Last 400, 200, well, the winner was out on its feet, but that's okay when you're absolutely put the sword to the rest of them. The ride by Harry Coffey was good in that they knew the strength of Duke de Sessa and probably knew the weakness of a few others to really put the foot to the floor sort of between the 800 and the 400.
Well, was he encouraged? I thought like Zach Purton didn't. He said post race he couldn't hold his horse, and he went and it's sort of like, well, I got to go now. But he did the right thing. He didn't let that horse sort of keep on going. Harry push button. What a story! Great win. Gee, was some sort of performance. And Duke, there you must have had something on because I know
backed him in the Turnbull.
I know,
and then
you didn't
off.
butter up.
Well, as I said, like
full.
Fair, what you think?
Full.
Yeah, absolutely full. And you know what they do with their money? They pass. Let's talk about a couple of the others because the Melbourne Cup is not too far away. And you've got to work out that Duke de Sessa, I think, had sort of 3-4 runs at 2,000 metres, then got to 2,400, wanted to be hard fit horse. Okay. They're not going to the Melbourne Cup. I think they've been decided that they're going to possibly go to a Moonee Valley Cup on a quick 7-day backup or 6-day backup. You don't see that too often for a Caulfield Cup winner because they just don't think there's any other. They don't think he can get to the Melbourne Cup, so they've got to try and find another race for him. So that's where they're going with him. I thought Buckaroo was outstanding, and I know there's a bit of commentary around Moreira that maybe didn't get to the spot, and I probably, when I was watching it, going, I wish he was so much closer. But he was a bit of a victim of circumstances early doors, wasn't he?
I think so, and like you can dig your horse. First of all, there was question marks on him at the trip, so it wasn't one they wanted to settle out. It's easy to say afterwards, he should have kicked up early and tried to get a spot. Well, he might have ended up like Zach's horse who did that and over-raced and didn't finish off. He got squeezed a couple of times. This was a massive run, and he's a horse that gets back anyway. He just didn't pan out for him. I mean, this run was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I was getting more and more confident close to the race, not because of the pattern or anything, but I just felt, on the day, I thought he's the one, mile and a half, no problem, and he's so well in. Yeah. Surely they go to a cup with him.
I think they will. Yeah. And without knowing, but if I was to ask you, gun to your head, do you go to a quick 7-day backup Cox Plate, or would you go to the Melbourne Cup?
Well, there's nothing else out of the Caulfield Cup that you look at and go, well, that's a Melbourne Cup run. Yeah. He was the only one, or the winner. Yeah. And the winner
ain't going to go there.
Isn't going there.
And I know that, horses can turn their form around, but just off that Caulfield Cup run, there's nothing else. And I know Laird Legend did lots of things wrong and all that kind of stuff, but Buckaroo's the one you can only take. If you were to tell me, what do you want to be with the Melbourne Cup right now? We haven't seen them yet. Well, we've seen them maybe last year, but they're the internationals or Buckaroo. I thought it was an outstanding cup trial. As much as I was on him for the Caulfield Cup and wanted to win on Saturday, you couldn't drop off him for a Melbourne Cup.
No, and I think he did a good job to sort of weave his passage through the field, and there was a lot of disappointing runs. But once again, you go back to the track, did it not suit a lot of runners? Still, not too much made ground. I mean, let's be honest, on paper leading in, we didn't think it was a vintage year.
Correct.
It might
that's
not
a good
be.
point.
And he was sort of the standout really at the weights, and barring probably not being able to build when he wanted to, it was still a fantastic run.
Buckaroo can win the Melbourne Cup, the rest can't. I think they were really putrid. That is the Hen House this week. All right, Doghouse here, Hutch. Well, there was a few races that we could have added. Don't worry, a few individual human behaviours as well could have been added as well. But I'm going to start with these two 2,000-metre 3-year-old races. Race 3 is the first one. King of Wall Street wins the race. Now, I don't know if this is possible, but 4 seconds outside standard time.
I'm getting a headache. Have you got a Panadol? Can you explain to me? How slow do you want to go?
Yeah.
It is ridiculous how slow they went in this race.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
And what for?
Well, so here's the devil's advocate to that question you asked. You go, well, they're going to the Derby in, say, 2 weeks' time, so we want to be able to peak on that occasion.
Oh, my God.
But this was beyond slow, and hence why there was no real margins. But it was a hard watch and a long watch, and I think race 4 was just about straight on. They were already in the mounting yard before they even crossed the line.
And I'm looking back at it going, well, I'm on pace with Keeneland. Like, surely just go there, moderate tempo, and you still win. Good through the line. Fantastic. Still gets beat.
Yeah.
But it wasn't actually a bad run.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad run. It's not its go.
But what do we learn?
It's nothing, and it's not its go anyway. So, that was the thing about it. And I was like, well, now I want a different form line for the Derby. But then if the Derby becomes a really strong staying test, then I can get back to Keeneland because that's what we saw in that race at Flemington, and maybe he's a big track horse. I'm like hoping that's the case if you were those kind of connections. But my theory is this form line could be very, very worrying. Like
Yeah, but it's the same sort of horses that are going there.
2,000 metre race somewhere. Just find it. It might be the one.
It could be.
It's outrageous. All right, so that was race 3. We were worried about, obviously, in the perspective of going towards the Derby. Race 4 was the ethereal, so perspective now of going towards the Oaks. Winner 2 darn discreet. If you were betting in run at the 600, you were going to say how fast she was going to win by. She's fallen in. They've gone 2.5 seconds outside standard time, so a little bit faster than the boys. But again, the last 400, 200 doesn't stack up for me overall. Look, she's done a great job. She's won 2 in a row now. But again, this is a race I've got some concerns about going forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. She was good. She wanted to lay in a bit late.
Yeah, she had the run though. I thought
perfect run.
Perfect run that I thought she would actually win by a big gap. When she didn't, I was like, I don't know. So I don't know whether she does go towards the Oaks. I don't know if she's a 2,500 metre filly or not. But again, I want different form line going towards the Oaks. If you see horses, you go, oh, they were really good through the line here. So they should have been. Like, to be honest, they had every right to be great through the line.
And the late sectionals weren't great either. I know
really
it was a bit earlier in the day, but still, when you sort of factor that in, it wasn't.
Yeah. So from a Derby and an Oaks perspective, those 2 races, I'm putting them in the bin, and let's try and find something else external of them when you're looking at those 2 races. Going to get to the last race here because we had some nice horses here. Gentleman Roy, pinstriped, obviously a Group 1 winner. Winner ended up being Mighty Ulysses here, Hutch. Third of a second outside standard time. Last 400, last 200, they haven't broken 13. Don't say that too often for these kinds of group horses. This race on paper looked like it was going to be really white hot. In reviewing it, it was cactus.
Yeah, it was. It was. I was disappointed in the Roy. Pinstripe was good with excuses.
Yeah, he was one probably out wide, and this is great discussion actually because a lot of people will say, well, 6+, he was in the no-go zone. It was a great run. It was probably a let-off. He'll now peak again. What you've also got to factor in though is this race has just gone so bad. Yeah. So how much is the market going to penalise horses coming out of this race? Now, he's got a bit of a backbone behind him because he's got some good numbers elsewhere. So maybe he's the outlier. But the rest of them, I think the market will absolutely trash.
Well, and it was probably highlighted by the fact that Buffalo River, who's been doing absolutely nothing, and has run those sort of late splits as well, was late the day, track chopped up a little bit, but still patting on side. And I just don't like that race at all.
Yep, race 3, 4, 10, all in the doghouse. There could have been a few more. That was that kind of day. Hits and misses here, Hutch. So in terms of the points bet market, what horses the punters wanted to gravitate towards, whether they hit or missed. In race 1, it done a really good number on debut. So I understand, or not debut, but won its maiden. So I understand why the market came from Contagio. He was $8.50 into $4.50. Look, I haven't got this race going that well. He runs 4th. He was okay, but he's not a horse I'd want to butter up again with.
He had it shot to pieces and got a nice lead. No, I thought the winner was incredible, really overcome all that adversity and fooled me into thinking that you could probably come from back in the field on the day. But no, Contagio, not for me.
This is a really interesting one. We're going to get your thoughts because I think we might have identified this horse as one to put into the Fox's Den after its first up run. It was race 2. The market loved it. Gallant Sun. $4.20 into $2.65. Now, maybe victim of circumstances in terms of where he sort of ended up in the map, but geez, I thought he was poor.
Like a lot of horses on the day, you thought they're in a good position, and that last 100, you think, well, now's the time to release, and they went the other way. There was a couple in that camp, and he was one of them. I was really disappointed. I'm not sure now. I mean, was it a gutbuster first up?
And that's possible. That's very possible.
He was in that fast race. It might have just emptied him out. I mean, you needed to see a bit more than that on the weekend. He didn't have a hard run in transit.
No, that horse, the winner, Lofty Arch, just owned that race really from the beginning, didn't it? And obviously edged off the inside lead. But worried about Gallant Sun going forward, punters. I think Hutchie might be right. I think that first up run, as good as it was, first up against the race shape, it may have gutted him. Race 4, Hurry Curry, $7 into $4.40. Again, it was sort of a different form line they wanted to be with. Around 2 darn discreet. Again, I've got the race going no good, so it's not something I really want to be buttering up with.
I was on it, no good, and knew my fate a long way from
Confetti, as they say. Race 5, Niance, you hit. It was $4.40 into $3.30 first up. I think this is a really positive sign that, yes, the market wanted to be with it. It's come out and done that number. We've put it into the Hen House. Market will absolutely froth this horse.
Easy watch and was very convincing. And if it can strike a track with a little bit of cushion again or get a wet track, continue to load up.
Yep. Race 6, GG's Mistruth, $4.60 into $2.90. Look, it doesn't run poorly. It runs 3rd. It was probably on paper, probably the obvious in the race. You could understand why the market gravitated towards it. Does it get 1,400 metres?
I don't think so. Now, I mean, once again, I'm scratching my head. It's a sort of rinse and repeat from Gallant Sun. Was on, happy where I was in the run. And that last 100 was just like, that was disappointing. So do they go back? Because she was fantastic at her other two runs and could nearly be undefeated in her career. But you don't look at that race and go, well, you're going on to a Guineas or anything like that.
Absolutely agree with that. And in the Cup, Duke Ducessa, $21 into $11, it hit. So it was a really good push. They obviously wanted to be a horse that was fit, on speed, and there might have been something to do with Kieran Maher as well.
Yeah, and just mopping up. I mean, you know, leaders, it's not going to go out. And it wasn't beaten that far in the Turnbull either. No.
So. I mean, if you'd backed into the Turnbull and you had any sort of sanity or some type of mental brain ability, you probably would have had something on. Something.
You'd have to have
just something.
You'd have to have some problems if you didn't butter up. Let's be honest.
And I think the key is to admit that you've got those problems, but if you don't admit,
you can't get better.
A long way away.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that was the hits and misses, punters. All right, in the Fox's Den here, Hutch. So you can lead us off for the Black Bookers, for the punters out there to follow in. You've got actually 4 horses, I think, that you identify that I think we can be with. Because
that's what you do when you get knocked to the ground. You don't say, well, you know, I'm out. You go, no, let's go back and launch.
Correct.
Pondalawi, second, but we've mentioned that race. It was a high rating race. She was fantastic. The win at Bendigo was awesome. I think Flemington she'll lap up. So I'm not sure where they'll go, but she's definitely one that I want to stick with. During the week, there was a horse called Nadal. Now, gee, it was a big tip around. It was a big tip around before its first up run down the straight. Disappointing there, but smashed the clock on Wednesday. Did you see that performance?
It's a really nice horse, so it'd be interesting to see where they go. Again, it's only a benchmark horse, so they can be able to just pick their way through. There might be a race over the Flemington Carnival. I know there's plenty of races there.
It was a benchmark 78, but this horse has gone well enough to win a good stakes race.
Yeah. Black type written all over it.
So I'm not sure where they'll go, but put it this way, if they aim a lot higher, don't look at it and go, benchmark 78. Yeah. No, this is a horse.
And I'd like it sort of on the min as well. Might just have that acceleration and explode away, and you might get a price. You had 2 others as well. I know I was on this horse as well, Ray Magnerio. He was pretty good.
I haven't got over it. It all went wrong. It all went wrong at the start, and then not much went right.
But see, this is the thing that just shattered me. Is like it still had the audacity to nearly win. Like you're at the 50, you're like, I think you might still get up.
And you know the run
didn't get up.
Okay, the run was there to the inside. Anyway, enough of that.
And Lovely Cut you liked as well.
Now, Lovely Cut was one with Reese Goodwin's stable who ran. She was super. I mean, she was fresh up. She showed a bit of potential last preparation and put up a couple of good numbers, but I wanted to sort of see it again. I don't think she was in the ideal ground. She came from a long way back and launched. I think it was the best 200 at the meeting. Yes, I'll be with her, I think. And you might get a price, and Reese is a good young trainer like the rest of them, but because he's not a big name, maybe you'll get an extra point. Who knows?
Yeah, it'll have a crack at the 1,000 guineas. And why not? You know that Lady Shenandoah is probably going to the paddock after winning the flight. There just might not be much around. She won't be the worst.
No, she'll run well.
Yep. I've got 3 off Broadway here, Hutch, for the Black Bulls. I found it really tricky to identify some horses from Saturday. I thought a lot of them went poorly. I think Buckaroo, from a Melbourne Cup point of view, you can be with, but there's not many else I wanted to be with, so I'm going to go real left field. Autumn Slide is a horse that we can follow just out of the maidens. It went good. A horse called Stage and Screen. It might be a horse that we can follow in a really hot race somewhere, and we might get a massive price about it. And Top Caliber. You always love that Bairnsdale form, so that's where I'm going.
Where is Bairnsdale?
Yeah, that's a good point. Never been there, but I look forward to attending.
You know who hasn't been to Bairnsdale, and I can guarantee you that? Belinda Carlisle. Have a look at this. If you don't mind this. Yeah. How was she, by the way? Was it good?
No, she was good, and she did a good concert as well. So it's really,
I like it.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Let's move on here, Punter. All right, think outside the fox here, Hutch. I'm just going to ask you about a few things that possibly happened over the weekend and even a little bit earlier to see where they go with some certain horses. Buckaroo next up. We did talk about it. You think Melbourne Cup's the best option for him? You wouldn't go 7-day back up?
No, I wouldn't go 7-day back up. I think it's the Cox Plate's going to have limited numbers, but you know he's got that via sustained and close form. But look, they were questioning him a mile and a half. I didn't watch that race on the weekend. The tempo was pretty strong. He was good. You've got to have a throw at the stumps. There's nothing else in the race. You go, well, what else are we going to take on? The ones that we just flogged by 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lengths.
Yes.
Please.
He goes there. He just about wins it too. Everest, your thoughts? as a race?
Well, it looked even on paper. They haven't smashed the clock.
They're going terrible.
I think she's maintained a level.
She hasn't improved. But
and that was good enough to win. She didn't have a great run. I mean, full kudos to her. I mean, and well done to the camp. Like, good enough to win it. Yeah, I just don't think there's a star around at the moment.
For her to sit 3 wide and 4 wide, and again, they didn't go fast, but to still win that race, really concerned for the rest of them.
Yes.
Really, she was.
I was disappointed in Growing Empire. I thought it controlled almost
chance.
the race from that one off, and I thought he'd sort of kick and could see he was in trouble at the 350. But it's his first prep in a way.
So we're talking about this because we've got the Flemington Straight on Champions Day up the 1200 metre straight. Now I don't know where these all go, but I want a different form one. So I would take Overpass, who ran on the same day in the Sydney Stakes, over all those horses that ran in the Everest in that race up the Flemington Straight. I don't even know if it's going to go there. But I want a different form line from the Everest. Now, I know everyone else is going to be with the Everest because that's what everyone does and everyone loves the Everest. I want something else. Something else is going to win that race.
Jolly Star was good, but...
She goes to the Golden Eagle.
Yeah, I mean, she's one that she got back and she ran on well. But yeah, I mean, I think even was it the Kosciuszko ran the same sort of time with a winner with a couple of kilos more. So I know they were better late Everest, but they were entitled to be. But once again, as a collective, and usually the Everest stands up well. What I learned from it is this. There's not much between sprinter number 1 and sprinter number 30. I think it's a time where someone has to put their hand up.
We in Australia have always knocked on the door and stomped down the world's throat that we've got the best sprinters. That might not be the case anymore.
No, I think there's one in Hong Kong, the one on Sunday actually, nearly broke the track record. Ka Ying Rising, Kiwi bred with Hazy. Zach Purton, I spoke to him on air about it on the coverage on .com on the weekend, and he's pretty excited by it. And it's been backed up on the clock. On my numbers, it's a serious talent.
Okay, very good. And early thoughts. I know you pushed the punters into $8 prognosis with Crystal balling the Foxtures. You're still with prognosis. We think there's probably going to be 6 or 7 in it. What did you see? Did you see anything on Saturday from Pride of Jenny that you now go, oh, well, she's unbeatable? Well, it showed that can be vulnerable.
Yeah, no, she was a couple of lengths off, I think. She went the same sort of tempo. I know there was a bit of hoo-ha on the tactics.
It was a bit of hoo-ha,
but yeah, come on, give me a break. She likes to get out and get rolling anyway, and it's a straight line, nothing to see. I didn't mind her through the line. She'll go and do what she wants to do, but I walked away from that race thinking, I'm a little more excited about prognosis. And come on, D-Lane.
Just on that, if he can jump from the gates, is Prognosis a horse that can sit close? Because you know more than me about where that horse can sit in running. Or is it a horse that's going to be back in the pack and needs...
Generally, it's always settled back, but generally it's always slow away. In a field of 6 or 7, well, you're not going to be that far off them. I mean, we did really miss the start badly on a couple of occasions. They've done work with Julian Welsh. I think the horse will jump better. D-Lane's a massive upgrade. This is more so, and I don't think even if he jumped well, D-Lane would be wanting to hold a spot. I think it's about getting the horse in his right rhythm, but what he will do, I would imagine, is he's not going to let her get out of his sights. He'll from Japan, fast run races, he'll be happy to make his move.
He's going to be able to absorb the pressure. Is probably what I'm getting at. Is that he's actually
he'll love it.
Strongest.
Yeah,
that race where he got beaten by Romantic Warrior, and they sort of did that mid race.
He took off. He took off earlier than you did on. Post Caulfield the other day. I mean, that's early.
That is very early. All right, very good. So that's the thoughts. You think Prognosis is still number 1 set?
Have you got any other thoughts on the Cox Plate?
No, I think if it's really wet, and I don't know if it will be, I'll come back around to broadsiding. But other than that, I think I'm with your Japanese horse. I think he's the winner.
And were you singing Sort of Sweet Caroline on the weekend?
I was in the summer rain. See you, boys. See you, everyone. Girls, everyone who watches. I don't really know. See you. Bye. Thanks for watching, punters. Please like and subscribe.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.